Hello and welcome to a Pixie 3 tutorial on using the paint tools. You've opened up your project and you'd like to now create or draw something fantastic. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click on the paint button in the top right corner to see all of your paint options. By default, it's going to probably start you out with this paintbrush, but there are a variety of other tools that you could use as well. Let's take a look at what the paintbrush does. So when we first click on the paintbrush, you'll notice that underneath it, it has a little black dot, and that gives us the size of the brush itself. So you'll notice the paintbrush, as I click and drag on my screen, mimics the size of the dot on the tools bar. And you notice I can change the size of that by sliding over the bar underneath that image named size, and as I do so, it'll change the size of that paintbrush. At the bottom, you'll notice I've got a color palette that I could choose from a variety of different colors just by clicking on them, and as I do so, the color changes. You'll notice that there's a little color wheel off to the side that allows me to fine-tune the colors as I need. I find that mostly these colors do the trick though. So the paintbrush, as you can see here, I can click on the different colors and then draw something fantastic. If you ever make a mistake to undo something, I tend to click the undo button on the top menu bar, and that will just undo things. There is an eraser button on the side under the paint tab, but I tend not to use this one because it's a little more cumbersome than using the undo, but it is there. So let's continue going through our paint options. So we just looked at our paintbrush. Now there is our colored pencil. And when I click on the colored pencil, you notice I have the same option as the size and color. And when I draw with my colored pencil, it kind of gives me more of a colored pencil look. Let's compare that to our paintbrush. And then the third one at the bottom is a crayon. Notice that gives us a crayon look. And then I have a paintbrush. That'll give us kind of that paintbrush look. And then we have this 3D sphere. And it kind of has that 3D look. And then the last one on the bottom is actually a blending tool, as though you took your finger on a paint canvas and just kind of smeared it. You notice you can change the size of the amount of distortion or smearing that you do to your tools. All really cool things. So those are the bottom ones. Let's click my eraser. I'm going to change the size of that eraser so I can quickly go through and erase everything. Okay, so once things are erased as nice clean canvas, let's look at another cool thing that we have here with our paint tools. Notice in my paintbrush, I also have, not only do I have the size, but I have this symmetry. Most of the time I keep it off, but if you were to turn it on, you've got different symmetry tools. So this one, let's click on the first one here. If I were to draw something, it is going to create an image that is symmetrical to what I'm drawing. Okay, pretty cool. Let's click on the different symmetry one. You could see here as though I've kind of create something that's, again, just change my color to give it a different look. The third symmetry tool. And then finally that fourth symmetry tool. Let's make this one red. Let's see here. Kids can probably have a good time with this. So those are, again, the symmetry tools, and that comes into effect with the paintbrush, the colored pencil, crayon, the paintbrush, and the 3D sphere. Let's look at the different options on the top. Again, here's that pointer that allows you to select things. We're going to skip this one for now, and we'll come back to the eraser. That's pretty self-evident. It erases things. We have our shape tool. You click on this, it gives us a variety of different shapes that we can draw. So straight lines, if you click and drag, you'll get a straight line. You notice that underneath that you can change the color and you can change the width of that line. So if you want the line thinner or thicker, Then we have an arrow, double arrow, little squiggly line. We have different shapes. Notice when I click on the shapes, let's clear this off so we can see the shapes more clearly. I'm going to draw a circle. Notice that I can change the width of the circle. Okay, so when I click that circle, there's one. Let's make the width of it a little wider. So that changes the width. But notice that there are three other options underneath. If I click this solid option when I draw my circle, it will make it solid. If I click this option that allows, it looks like there's a little rotate button, it actually allows me to rotate. Circle isn't the best option. Let's click a triangle so you can see what I mean. So you notice how I have my triangle. With that, I can draw it and also rotate it. Okay, another way of doing it. And then there's the dashed, so that the shape is appearing dashed. Okay. Underneath shapes, you can see all assortments of different things you could draw. Then you have your spray can. Your spray can has a variety of different options. Underneath it defaults to spray. And this kind of shows you different spray things. So as you click and you spray, you'll be spraying that pattern. Different patterns look a different way, and you of course can change the color of those spray patterns. You could also change the size of them. So we can shrink them down. So maybe you want your spray pattern to be nice and small. Not only does the spray can spray in these patterns, but you can also spray with different things. So maybe you want to spray with numbers. So here's our number 1, and you wanted to spray ones everywhere. Okay. I find that I use the spray can with there should be nature in here. Oh, here's plants. I tend to use the grass spray can quite a bit actually for some projects. So I click on the grass, I make the size of the grass a little bit bigger, and then I go down here and I'll spray some grass down, and it's a quick way for me to draw some nice looking grass on my projects. So that's the spray can. The next thing is the paint bucket. The paint bucket's a great way to fill areas of your project very quickly. Let's say that you had drawn a horizon line across your page and you wanted to color one half a nice sunset yellow. I click on yellow, click on my paint bucket, and click on top. And maybe on the bottom I wanted it to be a nice dark brown, and I can click on the bottom. Notice the paint can will fill everything that's open. So if I were to draw my line across, but stop right there, notice there's a little white spot separate, open, leaving the top and the bottom open. If I were to click on my paint bucket, notice when I click on the top, it'll still flow to the bottom because of that open space. So make sure when you're drawing that you close off the spaces that you want to be completely covered, so that when you paint on one side or the other, they fill in appropriately. And notice that the paint bucket has different options. You can paint solid or with different types of graphics. Maybe you want to paint clouds on the top, or a checkerboard, or maybe some of these 3D patterns to make a cool little design. All sorts of great things. So to rehash the paint tools, you have your paintbrush, your color pencil, crayon, paintbrush 3D, your blender, okay, or your kind of smearing, stretching tool, your paint bucket, spray can, your shapes, your eraser. The last one, which I tend not to use very often, but is your selector tool. Okay, what this does is, let's start with a blank screen so we can see. I guess we can just use it as it is. This selection tool allows you to actually just click and select areas, and you can then drag them and move them. But note when you let go of them and you click off of them, that area is now stuck there. Okay, it's now part of the background, so you can't now click and drag it again. You would have to go back and reselect it if you wanted to move it. You can select areas with a square, more of an oval. Use this lasso tool to kind of try and drag and select your own different areas you want it to move. I'm going to move that section over there. Or there is this wand which will select by default all of the areas of the same color. Okay, so maybe you wanted to move things in the same color in a different area. This tool takes a bit of practice, but in certain circumstances can definitely enhance your project. So when using your paint tools, you can see there's a variety of different things, different techniques you can use. I think they'll have a great way of enhancing your students' projects. So go ahead, use the paint tool, and create some great activities.